Welcome to the Leader's Edge podcast. I'm Sandy Laycox, Editor-in-Chief of Leader's Edge. In this installment of our Personal Lines podcast series, our Associate Editor Chris Hann interviews Bill Johnson, founder, chairman, and CEO of the Liberty Company Insurance Brokers. After starting his own brokerage after college, Johnson left insurance to spend multiple years making movies with the likes of Tom Hanks, Brad Pitt, Meg Ryan, and more. How does he bring that experience back to brokerage? Find out in this fascinating conversation.
So we are here with Bill Johnson, who is the founder, chairman, and CEO of the Liberty Company Insurance Brokers based in Woodland Hills, but operating in all over the country. So Bill, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, thank you.
Let me start by asking, I guess, what has to be the most obvious question. I do these interviews each month with an insurance executive. I'm pretty sure you're the only insurance executive I've interviewed for this piece, this personal lines interview, who has also produced movies with Brad Pitt and Tom Hanks and Keanu Reeves and Nicole Kidman and so on and so on and so on. You founded this business, you ran it successfully for 16 years, and then you go to Hollywood and produce movies. Why?
Well, you know, I got to a certain point of, building my insurance business up, and I kind of, I was adding employees and growing my revenues and making more money. And, I got to a certain point and sort of lifted my head up and started looking around for role models, trying to understand what the next phases of my life were going to look like. And, as I looked around, I saw a bunch of pasty guys like myself, most of whom were playing golf 3 days a week with their buddies. And, it sort of seemed to me like they were sleepwalking through life. Nothing wrong with playing golf 3 days a week. That's not my thing. But I just thought, when I get into my 50s, I want to be getting out of bed with passion every day because I love what I do. And that meant it needed to have a creative component to it, because I like to use the business side of my brain and the creative side of my brain. And I hadn't really arrived at the place that I've arrived at now, where I see that there's lots of opportunity for creativity in the insurance business. And so anyway, at that time in my life, living in Los Angeles, that translated into doing that, very traditional insurance broker to film producer transition. I decided to head down that path.
This was obviously something that you had always been interested in. You had taken some filmmaking courses, as I understand.
Yeah, well, I actually at first I just decided to do it because I thought it would be a cool thing to do and interesting and fun and creative, and then I started to try to learn, because I didn't know anybody in the business. I didn't know anything about it, and so I just sort of did what I've done my whole life, which is jump in the pool and start splashing around, and eventually try to figure out how to swim. And so yeah, that included taking some film classes.
Are there lessons that you learned? Well, it's a two-part question. Are there lessons that you learned in the insurance industry that you were able to apply when producing movies, or vice versa? Were there lessons you learned producing movies that you came back and were able to apply when you came back to Liberty in 2018?
Yeah, well, interestingly, when I was in the process of making my transition into Hollywood, it just so happened to coincide with there was a lot of insurance-backed financing happening in Hollywood at that time. And some people may remember those days, but there was some London brokers that had lined up different carriers that were willing to insure slates of movies. And the concept was that if a producer made 10 movies, some of them would be winners and some of them would be losers, but that overall, they would balance themselves out, and you could charge a premium to take on that risk. And across a slate, it would be a good risk to take on. It turned out that thinking was very flawed, because it just resulted in adverse selection of the film projects, because the financing with the insurance-backed piece became very expensive, and so only the riskiest movies ended up going into that structure. And so the insurers got their asses handed to them on that one. And so anyway, to answer your question, yes, I use my insurance knowledge in the film business, ultimately to no avail. But it did give me something to talk about, and it gave me a story to tell, and
a good story.
Yeah, and in Hollywood, it's all about stories, not only the stories that you make, but the stories that you tell to do the dance to make it all happen. And it gave me something to sort of differentiate me and give me something to talk about. And then on the flip side, after having my experience of, making, I made 34 movies in about a 15-year time frame. And then, I took a year off and traveled around the world with my wife and our kids. So my wife and I have twins, a boy and a girl. And we took this year from the summer of 2017 to the summer of 2018, and we traveled around the world as a family. The kids were 8 going on 9 at the time that we left on the trip. So it was a great age for them. And when we came back from that trip and I landed back in LA, and I had this moment of going, oh man, I don't have a routine here in LA anymore. I'm not sure what to do with myself. And the insurance business, I had handed over the reins of that business to my buddy Jerry Pickett, and he's our president now. And my film business, I had closed down my office while I was traveling. I used to go to an office in Century City every day, and so that was closed off. And the insurance business was doing its thing, and Jerry was doing a good job. And I kind of took that moment to look inside and think about what I really wanted to do. And as I looked inside, I realized I was more interested in putting my energy back into the insurance business than I was to put my energy back into producing movies. And that was a tough decision to sort of let go of the film business, because I had invested, 15 years into building a network of relationships. My identity was wrapped up into it. And it was hard for me to sort of walk away from everything that I'd learned and all the relationships that I'd made to go back into the insurance business. And I'll tell you why I made that decision in a minute, but to answer your question, I brought a lot with me back into the insurance business that was very surprising to me, that I didn't realize how much I would be able to bring with me back into the insurance business. And I would say that maybe the most important pieces of that were, number one, I had raised $800 million of financing for the different films that I produced. And so I'd learned a lot about the world of finance, about how to raise money, how to deal with people in the world of finance and speak that language and navigate in that world. And so as I was coming back into Liberty and now focusing on scaling Liberty, my ability to navigate around the capital markets and figure out what was best for Liberty was greatly enhanced by that experience. And also just my overall comfort in talking about large numbers. Every day I'm, in the film business, throwing around $40-50 million budgets, and all the numbers are so big, and so then when all of a sudden I started dreaming up, my plans for where to take Liberty, I was very comfortable thinking about large numbers. And then the other big piece that I would say that I was able to bring with me was I had developed a lot of skills in terms of navigating and managing and creating relationships. And ultimately, every business and maybe none more so than the insurance business, is a relationship business. But the movie business is incredibly relationship driven. And in a lot of ways, you have nothing but your relationships in that business, more so even than the insurance business. And of course, you're dealing with a lot of egos and a lot of, creative personalities, but just an incredible array of different types of personalities. And so I developed a great skill and adeptness at navigating around different types of personalities, different types of egos, and overall the ability to navigate relationships became a real strong suit that I brought back into the insurance business.
I would imagine you were away for 15, 16 years. There obviously the industry evolved and went through some changes in that period. Was there a learning curve when you came back?
Yeah, I mean, there was a tremendous learning curve. I mean, the truth of the matter was, I was not that seasoned of an insurance executive, for a number of reasons. Number one, I had started this little agency with a desk and a phone right out of college. And, my first policy generated $1,200 in commission after a month of cold calling. And so, I built the business up and eventually got around 4 million of commission revenue. And that was when I handed over the reins to Jerry and went off into the film business. So it wasn't like, there was a whole world of this business that I had never been exposed to. And in the years that I was, gone, Jerry and I would talk regularly, and we grew the business from 4 million to 11 million in revenue during that time. Which is, nice, but relatively modest growth over that period of time.
But you still had a hand in the business. You didn't just walk away.
Yeah, that's right. But, the point is, I was a guy who was running from afar, was running a small agency. I wasn't getting up every day thinking about it and living and breathing it and reading the trades and trying to absorb everything. So when I came back, it did feel like I was drinking out of a fire hose, but I loved it, because I love to learn. I've learned that I'm happiest when I'm learning and when I'm teaching. And so to be able to come back in and just start to drink out of a fire hose, bring some of the skills that I learned in the film business into, a fresh and creative approach to how to build this business. It's been ongoing for the 3.5 years since I've been back, and it's been a lot of fun.
Wow. All right. Before we leave the movie industry, tell me some of the films that you produced with these really A-list actors and actresses.
Well, let's see. I produced a movie called The Gray, which opened up #1 at the box office with Liam Neeson. I produced a film called The Kids Are All Right, which was nominated for Best Picture with Annette Bening and Julianne Moore and Mark Ruffalo. I produced a movie with Brad Pitt called Killing Them Softly, with Tom Hanks called The Hologram for a King. I did a movie with Ryan Reynolds called Just Friends, and Meg Ryan and The Women. Keanu Reeves did a movie with him called Replicas. I did a movie with Nicole Kidman, Grace and Monaco. Anyway, I could go on.
So then I need to ask, that all sounds so damn glamorous. How do you walk away from that?
Yeah, I think, I think just through this journey that I went through of, starting my business as an entrepreneur, my insurance business, moving into the film business, having that opportunity to, dine with movie stars and billionaires and all of the rest of it, And then taking that year off and traveling the world with my family, and having all of those adventures and experiences. I found myself arriving at a place coming back into LA in the summer of 2018, where number one, I think I'd scratched that itch of glamour, and sort of demystified it, and also just come to realize clearly that, the true key to happiness in life is in giving service and in connection and relationship. And, I'd made a lot of money at that point in my different business ventures. And I just think I had a much firmer understanding of what's truly important in life on this short walk that we get on this planet.
That was Associate Editor Chris Hand talking with Bill Johnson of the Liberty Company Insurance Brokers. I hope you enjoyed it. Check out the rest of our Personal Lines podcasts at leadersedge.com.